Hello, this is I Go Travel with Don Barnett. We're just waiting for the ferry here in Vancouver to pick us up and take us over to the Victoria area on Vancouver Island. But along the way, I think we'll stop at one of the Gulf Islands and visit folks there and see what they do and what life is like on the island. And when we're on the ferry, we'll take a look and find out a few things about these big ferries that run between Vancouver Island and the coast here. So we're just waiting for the ferry now. No trouble to catch the ferry at the terminal in Vancouver, the Tawasin Terminal. The sun was setting over the water and we were on our way. The loudspeakers blazed advice and safety regulations, but all I remembered were three of them. One, only seeing eye dogs were allowed upstairs. Number two, no one could remain in the enclosed car deck below. Oh yeah, I remember now. Hopefully, everyone had shut off their car burglar alarms. The main seating area was very spacious, with good quality cushioned seats to sit on. The boat had a good-sized cafeteria, and there was quite a variety on the menu. They had racks for magazines and various pamphlets, and there were nice, clean tables to eat at. This area was where people worked with computers. There was also a tourist shop loaded with various items, clothing, and so on. Each ship had a medical personnel qualified to deal with short-term medical emergencies. Crews are organized on the basis of organizational units called points of assembly. This means that the same crew lived in the same community and worked with the same set of vessels with others that they knew. This enabled the crews to work with those that they were familiar with. You had to be careful on the steep stairs, but you could also take an elevator to different deck levels. Ships have switched from diesel, which is a substantial pollution creator. Smaller ships have switched to electric power, and the larger vessels are converting to LNG or liquid nitrogen. Switching a large ship to liquid nitrogen is estimated to be the equivalent of removing 633 cars off the road. And this ship here is one of the newer ships that is an electric powered vessel. We are on one of the Gulf Islands now, visiting people who lived on one of the relatively isolated Gulf Islands. Jim and Alice here enjoy visiting the old home place. Jim's parents, Fred and Vi, lived and built their home here. It takes a special kind of a person to choose to live on an island. Not everyone wants to or is able to live here. You had better be a strong individual, someone who can live with the things around you and enjoy them. Here is the sign out at the road, so let's pull in. This is our first view of the front yard, and it looks pretty good to me. There is wind and winter storms, but it can all be made up by plants like these snowdrops that can come in January. You can wake up to the odd winter snowfall like this sometimes, but by and large it's a pretty nice summer mild climate. Like in this picture here, same bay, but just a different time of year. This is the old chicken house down at the end of the fence here. But there was no boss to tell Fred or Vi that they had to be up for work at 8 o'clock in the morning or they could quit at 5 p.m. In fact, these are short hours. For most, the workday often started at 6 in the morning and ended somewhere near bedtime at maybe 9 or 10 o'clock at night. You are on your own, so you better have both structure and organization. Jim and Alice took us for a hike up to a nice lookout spot. And I was just along these same lines thinking that to live here, you would have to be flexible, ready to adapt to sudden new situations, because there is no one there to tell you what to do. You have to be both confident and self-assured. You usually don't or even want to feel you want a social group, clubhouse, or golfing pals to help you pass the time. There was always work to do. Plants like this English ivy looked nice, but it was an invasive plant brought onto the island at one time. It spread quickly and wrapped itself around the bigger trees, choking them and eventually killing them. So war was continuous with fast-growing invasive vegetation like this. These are some of the old fruit trees that Fred and Vi planted. But you know, getting back to that social thing, it is not that you are not social, but you just don't have time, nor do you want to make the time to participate in the social events. Vegetation grows like crazy in this country, some of it good and some of it bad and needs to be controlled. I never met Fred or Vi, but I know that they had some of these characteristics that I've been talking about. They're like my kinfolk, stuck out on the isolated prairies. You either have these kinds of self-made, self-sustaining abilities, or you will not survive. But these islanders, like Fred and Vi, like my prairie kinfolk, were strong, self-made people who loved every minute of their way of life. They never needed to search for a heaven on earth. For them, they had found it. Alice cooked us up a $1 million breakfast, and we enjoyed the $1 million view that was right outside the door. There was no shortage of good scenery and good food. Notice the aluminum roof on the chicken house here. Aluminum better counteracted the moss growth that liked to accumulate on building roofs. Fred and Vi had chickens that laid eggs for their use and for some for sale as well. They raised chickens for the eggs that they used themselves and sold to neighbors. Hey, what my cameraman? He's jumping up. Why are you jumping up and down? What? There's an otter? And the otter what? Otter? A live otter? You mean the real animal? Where? Behind me? Where? There he is. I see him. Get a picture of him. He's a fine-looking, healthy animal. You say that's a sea otter? No, that's a river otter. I saw those guys swimming in the bay. I can tell by the way they swim, they are river otters, not sea otters. I don't care if they're in the salt water, in the sea. Another thing, that otter we saw, he's running up in the land. Sea otters don't go on land, hardly ever. But the river otter will. And those river otters, I know Jim was saying that they like to stay overnight and sometimes during the day under the chicken house. That's a river otter. If you looked at those videos, Mr. Cameraman, that we made on the Alaska Panhandle and downtown Seattle, in both those videos, we talked about the difference between sea otters and river otters. And so this is a river otter, and there's no question about it. You got a great picture of him. There he goes. He is an utterly beautiful animal. By the way, it was not otters like this guy who caused trouble. It was the wild mink that killed the chickens. The chickens had to be put in every night, but even so, every once in a while, these mink would get into the chicken house and kill the chickens. There was no shortage of work around the place. Fred and Vi maintained several orchard trees, and they planted a sizable garden in this area, and they started the little plants in a greenhouse that they had attached to the side of the house. And they ran a small campground on the property. Why not? It was a perfect place. Their house was decorated with small carvings and sculptures like these that they had made, including the sheep in the foreground. They also had a small herd of sheep, and Vi used the wool to spin into yarn. Here is a wreath on a door that Fred built. Fred liked to carve and sculpture with his wood lathe. And how is this for a front door? Let's see if that horseshoe doorbell works. Of course it does. Fred liked to do metal work as well. And how is this for a fireplace? Fred and Vi built it all, stone by stone, all the way to the second-story ceiling. This is a new wood-burning insert, but the old original open box area for burning, it heated the stones and kept the house warmer during the night. And keeping up a good wood supply was essential, summer and winter. Every log joint in the walls had to be chinked to keep the cool outside air from seeping into the house. It was just a lot of work. Just look at this unique furniture. Fred scoured the forest for the right kind of willows and other tree branches to make frames for the chairs and the stands for the lamps. It was a house full of unique art. And here is the source of some of that art, these old gnarled trees found in the forest. Here's a few more examples of Fred's artistic work that hung on the wall, and a nice big chandelier from above with lanterns, and inside the lantern modernized with bulbs. Vi spent a lot of time on her interests, one of which was spinning and weaving. As I said earlier, they raised their own sheep, clipped the wool, cleaned it and carded it, and spun it into yarn. This is some of her carding equipment and spinning machines. And this was her very top quality loom, where she wove items from her wool. She had a sizable hobby operation, and she displayed and sold her products at the little sales shed that was right on the property. Another building on the property was the boathouse here. When the tide was in, the boat was floated into the lower part, and upstairs served as accommodation for family who visited and was sometimes rented out at other times. On some islands we were on, we saw unattended small sales stands like this one here. There just wasn't enough traffic to warrant sitting beside your sales stand along the roadway all day. So people priced their produce and left a toolbox or money box for customers to drop their money into. The system depended on honesty. Such a system often would not work, I don't think, in many larger, more urban environments. But you do see this system on some of the Gulf Islands. Also on some islands, you see forestry planting. BC has a substantial tree planting program, Planters are paid by the tree seedling planted, and workers can make good money in tree planting. Well, here we are again, still waiting for the ferry. Except this time we're going from one of the Gulf Islands over to the Victoria area and other places on Vancouver Island. So if you liked what you saw, hit the subscribe button. That'll tell you when we'll be bringing more videos onto the internet, and that helps support our channel on YouTube. And we'll see you over on the island soon as this ferry comes in.